Today, what we're going to be doing, or tonight actually, when I'm doing this, actually, is we're doing a little bit of drawing. So, we're going to be drawing actually the Rocketeer, and this is what you're staring at actually is a blank piece of paper, and this is a character that's one of my favorite characters, I think, of all time, my favorite movie of all time, and ever since I was a kid. And it's a really fun one to draw, so I thought we'd draw one here pretty quick, and we'll do some watercolor here. So I figured nice kind of heroic pose here, maybe him flying through the sky or something like that. When I'm thinking about drawing something, I often kind of think about, like, I often will kind of plan it out first. And so, the Rocketeer, if you're not familiar with, is creation by Dave Stevens from the early 80s, and it became a movie after a really pretty long time, in development. But it finally became a movie in 1991. Well, that's when it was released. And actually, in fact, it's 33 years old as of the 21st, I believe. So happy 33rd anniversary, Rocketeer film. And so he's a character that he's a pilot in the 1930s, and he finds a rocket pack allows him to fly. It's a pretty simple premise. And so he has this kind of distinctive costume, and kind of emblematic of like the sort of Knights of the Air type of kind of image that I think a lot of pilots had in like the golden age of aviation. And so I was thinking like maybe something like, he has a sort of triangular chest piece, something like this. Maybe we'll give him, maybe we'll make him flying kind of like, and he's wearing these jodhpurs, these riding pants. I'm not entirely sure why pilots of that era wore those riding pants, but I think they kind of viewed themselves as kind of like, riders of planes instead of horses, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, he is. And they kind of flare out on the sides. I suppose that may make them easier to sit down in and move around on a horse in, I imagine. Maybe it was just for looks. I'm not sure. And then we got... let me give him a sort of a heroic pose, like kind of like, something like this. Now I'm just doing sort of a quick sketch to get something down there. The way he was drawn in the comic book, he had these sort of shoulder pads on, which I'm not really sure what the purpose those served. The other thing that I always thought was interesting about Rocketeer, he has this, I've never seen it, but I remember looking for it when I was a kid because I really liked his jacket. And it has this sort of like front leather bib on it, and it kind of comes around like that. My pencil's gonna have to get a new pencil here. Let's see here. Maybe we'll go mechanical for this one. So, okay, there we go. Something like that. This leg is coming out like that. Okay, and then we're kind of doing arm over here. One of the things about drawing, it helps to have some sense of human proportions, at least if you want to make the characters look right. People's arms, assuming it's like you're basing them on normal proportions, are actually really long. So if you stretch out your arms tip to tip, that wingspan is usually about the length of your height. It's at the same thing, and so sometimes I err on making the arms too short, and that makes him look funny. So he ends up having hands. Of course, they're also kind of hard to draw. So we'll save the hands a little bit for a little bit later. He's got some pockets going on there. Let's make some folds maybe in his pants. Got some knee action going on there. And then the Rocketeer also wears these boots. So just like a horseback rider, you know, a lot of those pilots of that era wore riding boots, and so you can see this in the beginning of the Rocketeer movie. The character is played by Billy Campbell is wearing this particular getup. Okay, so there we got boots, and then proportions I think are looking okay. Got some boots there, kind of something kind of like that. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's see. So we got left hand over here. Maybe we'll make him kind of like making a fist, and we'll draw the details of the fist later. But something kind of like that. He's like punching the sky. That's a pretty heroic posture, right? Yeah, interestingly enough, that, you know, the Rocketeer, the way that Dave Stevens had portrayed him, he's just like a regular dude, you know, and I really like that kind of about the character. I don't know. As the thing is, like, I don't really know that much about superhero characters. Oddly enough, I went with my town had a showing of The Wizard of Oz today, and I went with my kids. They do like free showings in the summertime. And there's a comic book store in town. We went afterwards because my son wanted to go there. And my experience going to comic book stores is always very like mixed. I don't really know that much about comic books. I know about like the Rocketeer and like a couple other ones, maybe like, I don't know, Batman or Superman or something like that, you know, based on what I knew as a kid. And so aside from kind of that, I don't know what to look for. And the odd thing about comic book stores and comic books in general is that it's kind of hard, I found, or maybe someone will know better of how to do this, like to kind of get into a new series, because you can't actually look at the comics right there in the store. Usually they're sealed, so you can kind of look at the covers and kind of get a sense, like, you know, okay, well, that might be kind of cool or whatever. But yeah, in terms of being able to actually kind of sample them right there, it's kind of hard. I don't know how, if anybody knows how you, or has any ideas how you do that. Because I was asking, I was specifically asking if there's anything for kids, and you know, that question always gets sort of met with a bit of confusion, because a lot of stuff is not really meant for kids. So anyway, but yeah, it's kind of a long way of saying, like, when I go to one of these places, I often don't really know what to look for, and the Rocketeer was always there sort of aren't that many Rocketeer comics, like when you come right down to it. Once you read the original Dave Stevens ones, which are kind of hard to find, there's not that many. Okay, so there's his. What I might do, you know, I'll do this as a illustration for. I wrote a Rocketeer short story not too long ago. It's turned it into a little game, which is available for this, which you can actually download free. It's we turned it into a choose your own adventure style story for a platform called Twine, which basically pumps out an HTML file which allows you to make a game. And it's set after the events of the movie. So in there, he's sort of a not soldier for hire. He's sent by the U.S. government, basically. Again, a reluctant hero to look for his friend Peavy, who gets captured by the Nazis. And so he is armed. And so maybe I'll make him with a gun belt here. You know, it's interesting. He's often shown in the comic posing with some kind of firearm, but he doesn't really actually use any. I don't even know if he uses any in the actual comic book itself. So that's but why not? We'll give him a holster here. He's often shown with a Mauser semi-automatic, you know. And they explain it away, I think, pretty nicely in the movie by the fact that he gets it off of a German soldier. But in the comic book, he just sort of his friend Peavy just sort of has one, and it's not really explained how that happens. Some extra mags here. Okay. There we go. That's probably pretty good enough as a sketch. And then let's see. So the Disney version, and you know, the one used in the movie, and the Dave Stevens version, the rocket pack looks quite a bit different. I gotta admit, I may be sacrilege to say so. I really like the Disney version. I think they did a really nice job with that one. Sort of very sleek silver Art Deco kind of styling to it. So the angle of him would be something like he's kind of looking up. So something kind of like this maybe. And let's see if we can get this right. It would be, yeah, something like this. So we're not actually going to be seeing the whole helmet here, but we'll see the underside of it, I guess. And we might give him a chin strap. I don't know if there was a chin strap. I assume that there was. Okay. And let's see. The eyepieces. You'll see one probably. And then they had these it had these kind of like earpieces. I don't know exactly what they were called, but coming out there, and some of this piping that goes across like that. Yeah, I think something like that. This is going to get painted anyway. Going to use some watercolors. Then we have the fin. Maybe the most distinctive part of the whole thing. That'll kind of go like that. And then you can see in there, that's the pack there. You can see maybe a little bit of that. Now then there'll be all the flame. Okay. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, not sure. How big is that guy? How big is that arm compared to here? Okay, maybe that's all right. Maybe that's okay. Maybe we'll make this fist look a little bit more distinct, though. and he has this kind of control in his, has these controls in his palm, where he squeezes the throttle there. All right, so we're pretty much done the sketch. I think that's good enough for now. Okay, let's start doing some painting. Let's start with a little bit of in the comic book and the movie, he has sort of a brownish jacket. In the marketing stuff was originally used, it was like a reddish. So I think this sort of reddish brown, I think with brick color will probably work pretty nice. The nice thing about watercolors is that you can lay down the colors pretty quickly. Now I'm just using ordinary paper here. There's really nothing special about it, but you could use specific watercolor paper and that would probably work fine. The other nice thing I think about watercolors is that it's pretty much, you can't make a mistake. You know, you just kind of go over it and add a little water, and you can easily you can basically correct whatever it is that you thought you messed up. Right? Just sort of no mistakes, just adjustments, right? That's a good overall philosophy for life, I think. Is it really a mistake if you are able to adjust from it and move on? I don't think so. So I think sometimes people get very kind of locked in. They want things to be like a certain way, you know, and then you get really stuck on things, and sometimes that makes it hard to move on, or makes it hard to start. Starting sometimes is the hardest part. You know, you want to do things in you have certain standards and so forth, and but then you discover that in the process of researching it or whatever, it's actually more complicated than you thought it was going to be. That's usually the way it is, isn't it? And then you've already talked yourself out of it before you even get started. So at least my way of thinking is that you just start wherever it is. It doesn't really matter what it looks like in the beginning, but if you start, you'll make adjustments along the way, and it'll get better as you go along. And once you have the momentum going, then you can easily move on and do bigger and better things afterwards. So for this chest plate, I'm going to go back over this and put in some lines and things like that kind of help delineate the details. In the beginning, I just kind of want to lay down the colors. Okay. And then he, in both the movie and the comic book, he's wearing sort of khaki kind of pants. I think maybe that would be okay. Yeah, or let's see, maybe this one. Not sure what this color is. Yeah, actually I like that better. It's sort of a tannish color, I think. It's like the color of sand. There we go. I think one of the things that appealed to me about this character when I was 12 or whatever, whenever I first saw it, because I liked airplanes when I was a kid, and never necessarily had any aspirations to be a pilot, but liked airplanes. And the GB was one of my favorite airplanes for some reason. I just liked it, how unusual it looked. I just kind of liked unusual things, and there was that one had a very distinctive appearance. The GB is the plane the Rocketeer flies. I think people described it as sort of a coffin on wings, and there are no surviving GBs at this point because they all crashed. But he flew one, and I think that's one of the things I really liked about the character. I remember my brother and I had this issue of Nintendo Power from 1992 or 1 or something like that. It had the Rocketeer, the game, the Nintendo game on for that, which is pretty god awful. The game is, I really wanted to like it, I'll be honest. I didn't have it as a kid, but eventually, found a copy of it once I found emulators and things like that allowed you to play them on a computer. It's pretty rough, but I remember looking at that magazine and thinking, oh, this looks pretty cool. Anyway, there's a picture of a GB there. I think that was actually before, and that was way before I think I had seen the movie. Because oddly enough, I didn't see the movie until basically a year after it came out. So it came out in summer of 1991. I probably didn't see it for a year afterwards because it was just harder to see things then. I think it was harder to rent things. It was harder to see things. There was obviously no streaming services or anything like that. It came to the Disney Channel, the world television premiere, about a year later, and that's when I saw it with my family. And we taped it, and that was the copy that I had. We missed the first couple seconds of it, or the first 10, 15 seconds. So I never actually heard the intro music, the beautiful James Horner intro music, until years later when I got my own copy. And then, I think at some point that's right. At some point, I was probably in high school, I managed to find the soundtrack to the movie in a record store of all, believe it or not, when those still existed. I don't even know if there's record stores anymore. And I found it. I remember being really stoked. I popped it in, and there's this beautiful, shimmering piano score, and that's the part that I'd missed. I didn't even know that existed. I thought that was unique to the soundtrack. It wasn't. It's just that I hadn't seen that very first scene, and that's the scene in the movie where they bring the GB out of the hangar. I don't think it hurts to start adding some details, adding a little shading here and there. A lot of this will kind of fade because after the watercolor dries, it will fade, but it doesn't hurt, I think, to add a little detail here and there. Okay, so where are we at? Let's do the Rocketeer's gloves. I think his gloves are brown, if I recall correctly. Maybe I'll add this as an illustration in the game that I made. So, like I said, it was originally designed as a choose-your-own-adventure story, and then I turned it into a game, and which is text-based. So it's still basically I guess choose-your-own-adventure stories are sort of like game books, but it was designed kind of with that in mind. So there are some it could have some pictures. I haven't added pictures yet, aside from the cover and a few other places, but not in the actual story itself. So why not? Could do that. Let's see. What should I use for silver? Here's this part right here. That's the rocket pack there. This part right here, brownish. These are these straps. And then there's some. Is that the color I used? I think it is. Yeah, there's some like I don't know what these things are called. They're like these little straps of leather that go over the tops there. Reminds me of those members only jackets people wore in the 80s. Okay, I think now would be a good time to do the helmet. The helmet is gold, so I'm not sure if straight away yellow would be good. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe this color in here. I don't know what that one is. Or, let's see. Yeah, maybe that one is best. Sort of golden. Maybe golden color. We can use some of the other colors for shading. I think in the movie, I think it was actually Peavy, you know, the guy I mentioned before, is, you know, the Rocketeer's mechanic and mentor and so forth. I think he makes it out of a bread box. He literally makes the helmet out of a bread box, and you see him like kind of like sawing and supposedly welding. I don't know, but he makes it right in the kitchen table. All in a night. In the comic book, and I think some of the promotional material for the film, which kind of used like an illustration style that was a cross between what Dave Stevens had and kind of like a Disney-fied version of it. They had the lenses of the rocket pack being green, which I've always liked. I always thought that was cool. It was a nice, distinctive. It was very earth tone, you know. The Rocketeer is like kind of like autumn colors. I always thought the green adds something. So maybe what I'll do for that is I'll use like just do green like this, and then maybe we'll do some highlights or something like that, depending on where the light is coming from. All right, I think maybe gray. The rocket pack. This is like technically a white, but it's a white background, so. Yeah, that's good for now. Okay, and let's see, what else we got? Well, skin color. Oh, Cliff Secord is a white dude, so we'll give him sort of a peachish colored neck in there and chin. Okay, the top of the rocket pack, or these little cones here, I think is a gray, not gray, it's like a silvery, not silver, sorry, gold. So I want to kind of make that distinct, so maybe I'll use this. There we go. And kind of while we're at it, I think I'll maybe use a little bit of this, or maybe orange, to add some highlights. It's got some depth there, or not depth, a bunch of colors, whatever that's called. Variety of colors there. Okay. All right. Well, that's not bad. Let's add some outlines. So we're gonna use some black for this. Don't necessarily need a ton of this, but you know, a little bit. I think looks nice. It's comic book kind of style anyway. I've actually just been using one brush so far. I think once this is done, I can go back and add a little bit of additional detail, shading, and so forth. Helps to add a little bit of what do you call it? More life, I think, to the painting. So here's an area, actually. Talk about no mistakes, right? Here's an area. It's a little too bleached out there. What we're gonna do is we're gonna wash that out a little bit, and then give it some more color. See, no mistakes with watercolor. Maybe no mistakes in art. Well, so if you end up blotching things out, I don't like that there. Okay, watercolor is really nice because you can just kind of dab and remove. Okay, had too much water on there, so I'm going to just use a little bit of a hint. It's kind of nice thing about watercolors. You don't need to. You just don't need you need a hint of things. Now the mask, or this grill on the front for him to breathe through, kind of has a distinctive pattern. One thing that they did in the animated series that I really like is they kind of make it look like Rocketeer is smiling. So sometimes if I can manage it, I'll try to do the same thing. There you go. There we go. All right. That's add a little bit more outline here. Real easy to kind of fill in gaps and areas like that. You're like, oh, went over the line, no problem. Easy to fill those out. Okay. Okay, where are we at with this? Oh, the chest thing here. Okay. So blend that out a little bit more. I want this to be darker. It currently is. Let's give it a little bit more color there. There we go. Okay, how about a little bit more on his arms here. Some folds. Okay, I think it might be time to add some of the buttons. Maybe we'll use brown for that. There we go. Now let's add a little bit of shading. I think I might use that brown to add a little bit of shading in some of these parts. And some more. Feeling of depth there. Okay. Outline the gun belt a little bit. If you notice, like some of these things, the details I'd already made had already kind of faded, so sometimes you kind of have to go over it again and add additional color and stuff like that. Okay, like here. Which color? Maybe this one. Let's add a little bit of what color to these. Jod furs, make a little shadow around there. Okay, this part I can just do with water probably. Okay, there we go. Let's do his legs now. And his boots here. Okay. Now, here's a thing we need to do with, we need to add, definitely need to add some blue for sky. We also need to add some fire. So I think what we're going to do is, so if you think about fire, the hottest parts are in the middle. So let's add some yellow. Add a little orange. And let's add some red. Where's red here? You got red? This looks like a red. This looks like a red. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, now I gotta just blend a little bit together. The really cool thing about watercolors is the blending happens so seamlessly. But you can do the same thing. You can do the same thing with crayons and other stuff like that too. I think sometimes people feel, adults in particular, feel weird about using crayons. You know, use crayons when you were a kid. Nothing wrong with using crayons. Crayons are great. I think there's something weird that happens, I think, for a lot of adults. They do plenty of artistic things when they're younger, you know, all kinds of different crafts. And then when they get older, they, you know, I don't know where these messages come from exactly. That the idea that we have to stop doing those things, and why that is. People were given opposable thumbs for a reason, you know. We make things as people. Okay, one thing maybe I'll do is I'll add a little bit of yellow to here, because that gives a little bit of for a little bit of shading, I guess, from all the heat coming off of a little bit of heat coming off there. Okay, that belt buckle right there. Okay, doesn't have to be too. Yeah. All right, let's. We're almost done here. Let's do a little bit of sky. Nice blue sky. Not much, just a little bit of, get the idea of motion there, and we can kind of, there's areas kind of like here that got kind of like, you know, we're still showing areas that you know, kind of rub like this. That's actually good because it gives us the idea of these flying and moving. And these areas that rub, that's okay. I'm gonna fix that. The water's starting to get kind of dirty. But we're almost done. Okay, we got a sort of a base layer there. I'm going to touch up a few areas here. Here. Because you need a finer brush for that. That's pretty much done there. What I think we need to finish this off is a few other colors of blue. This looks like a nice, good color. Yes, there we go. Gotta be careful I don't put a hole through the paper though. paper is getting kind of thin. Too much water on it. That's one of the benefits of using actual watercolor papers. You don't have to deal with that so much, but it will dry. You can have, here's the thing, like we're going back to the same as before, you can have all those different things. You can say, well, you got to have this equipment, that equipment, you got to do in order to do it right. And you know what? By the time you end up getting everything, sometimes you end up spending a lot of money and time getting all the different equipment to make it look the way you wanted to when you could have just started. So you don't have to have the best equipment. You don't have to have the perfect setup. I can't tell you how many places I've been where the person leading a little tour, a guide, usually this is in another country, has the absolute worst shoes you would think would be possible, yet they manage to do a lot with them. So sometimes the best is not necessary. Using what you have is. All right. I think we're pretty much done here. Well, one thing I would like to do, and this may, see if this will work, is not, is just kind of rub the brush over it to get it to smear a little bit, because I want there to be some streaks. I want it to look like he's moving through the air. Which, that one I don't want there. But look, that's so easy to fix. All right, I think we're done. There you go. There's the Rocketeer watercolor. So thanks for tuning in. You can find more episodes about the Rocketeer. Well, certainly on my podcast, the 13th Hour podcast, I did do a whole Rocketeer segment, like a hood ornament, and there's a whole bunch on there. The game that I mentioned, the Rocketeer versus the Third Reich, you can find through the QR code, I think, in this. But if you Google it, if you go to my website, 13thr.wordpress.com, you'll find it there. Or if you go on to itch.io, itch.io, and you look up Rocketeer versus the Third Reich, you can download that free. One of the episodes in the past was actually with the Rocketeer himself, Billy Campbell, and that was where the genesis of this story came from. So for more information on that, you can just go to my website and you can find it there. If you like the Rocketeer, I highly recommend you check out the Rocketeer Minute. And it is, so basically Jim and Hal, this is a podcast, they go through every single minute of the podcast, of the movie, and they talk about it. It's amazing. There's a wealth of knowledge there. It's amazing. So you got to check that out if you're into the Rocketeer. All right. So, hey, thanks for tuning in, and I will probably be back in the future for another experiment with this whole live stream stuff. So thank you, and I'll talk to you guys later.